Are the new Pure Grip Socks Elite from SR4U actually any good? Well, there's at least one element that has really impressed and maybe even shocked me, but let's find out. Let's cover off a few things quickly straight out of the gate. How much do they cost, and are they better than all the other options from Pure Grip Socks? Well, they're $18.95, which is €2 more expensive than the Pro level version, and I'm here to tell you right now that it is absolutely worth the additional €2. Now, yes, $18.95 for a pair of socks still is quite expensive, but in the current market, it's kind of not. They're actually pretty reasonable, and it's fairly easy to find 20% off discount codes for Pure, especially from their mailing list. So you can get these for around €15. So I'd probably go as far to say they're actually quite good value for money. First thing we're going to do is look at the grips, and you can see on the new Elite they are much smaller, and that means that the sock moves a lot more freely and makes the whole experience of wearing them, the whole footbed, a lot more comfortable. I also find these grips to be a lot more effective, and thus far haven't worn down quite the same way that the Pro version did. I found the Pro version in the key contact areas, up in the front, around the heel, the silicone grip pads actually just became very smooth, very slick, and they kind of, you lost the intent or the reason that they were there. And of course, much bigger grips. This is just better in all areas. Now, they do stand off the sock a little bit more than the previous generation, but I absolutely don't see that as a problem whatsoever. But the elephant in the room. If you've watched any of my sock reviews before, you will know that I do not like silicone grips on socks in general. The idea of a silicone element on a crew sock is just something that I slam constantly. Well, in this instance, this is probably one of the best iterations of a silicone element that I have ever seen put onto a sock. There are arguments to be made about things like Light Guard, which technically use silicone, but we'll leave them to one side. And in terms of what you were expecting to get from a silicone grip sock, these are pretty much up there with the absolute best, and I have been quite impressed. The issue will still stand that silicone, when wet, loses its grippy properties, which is obviously not great in wet conditions, or as your foot starts to sweat, you tend to find the silicone starts to lose effectiveness. So that's still going to be an issue here, but when comparing it to other socks that do a very similar thing, as I say, I think this is one of the very best, if not the best iteration of silicone element on a sock. Now, grip elements are all well and good, but they are only half the battle. Your sock has to fit well. This is arguably even more important than how effective the grips are. So, a first big plus point here is that you're getting anatomical shaping. So you're getting a right and left foot, same as you get on all the other Pure socks. And you're also getting a good range of sizes. So you can choose a size to fit your foot, which again, I think is a massive positive. And props to Pure Grip Socks for always having offered this. And in terms of materials and fit, there is a lot more work and effort gone into this Pure Grip Socks Elite. The Pro is basically a crew sock with a compression band and some silicone elements. However, here with the Elite, we've got a technically woven and built material. So without breaking down every single area of the sock, what we've got is something that offers better structure and stability and therefore fit. You're mainly allowing for some vertical stretch so that your foot can fit comfortably, but minimizing the lateral stretch so that the sock actually retains a bit of shape and holds in place that little bit better. hence the improved fit. It absolutely works and is definitely better than previous Pure grip socks. Overall, the way that the materials are built, rather than maybe the materials themselves, seem to have been more carefully chosen, and it's all of a benefit to the sock. There is, however, an issue here, I think, whereby what I would like to see is that extend to the underside of the sock. Without a 360-degree style fit, you're not really maximizing the actual what these elements are doing. So you're providing this structure and you're improving the overall fit and shape, but your base of the sock can still move and extend in a lot of ways where you wouldn't necessarily want it to. Admittedly, the top does hold it in place somewhat, but I would like to see a little bit more run around the bottom in order to basically give it a better fit. But the best thing I can say about this is that we are now talking about this Pure Grip Socks Elite the same way that I talk about socks that are in those higher levels. We're talking about it with an expectation of it being far beyond what a crew sock with grips would offer us. It's starting to step into an area where we can start to consider it as a serious contender, as a sock we should maybe go out and buy. As for the neck of the sock, this is very much in a crew sock style vibe, but is definitely improved from what you got on the Pro. Again, it just offers some flexibility and stretchiness, but while compressing a lot more and having a lot more structure. This will stretch out further, but this is just going to not overstretch and it's going to last longer as a result of this design change. But it is the area that is probably the least impressive in terms of upgrades for me, but it does the job quite well. So we've got significantly improved grips, we've got improved materials, we've got improved structure, we've got improved shape. This is all looking pretty good, and I haven't even got to the best part yet. These socks are insanely comfortable, like insanely comfortable. Now, this does come at a cost if you view it that way, because the footbed especially is quite thick. This is quite a thick grip sock. In fact, it's probably one of the thickest grip socks that I have tried recently, and that leads to just wonderful, wonderful comfort. It really does. Now, of course, if a thicker grip sock isn't something that you're looking for, then these aren't for you. But if you're looking for that comfortable, very plush feeling in your boots with added grip, you definitely need to consider this. As I touched on, that does mean the socks can get quite warm and you don't have incredible sweat wicking, especially across the base of the foot, and the ventilation through the top is only okay when compared to a lot of other socks. But I think you just accept this as a certain style of sock, as that comfortable, maybe slightly warmer sock, and that's why you reach for it. And I still think that if you're considering Pure socks in any way, this is the one to go for. I've got one more positive, one more negative that I want to touch on before we rank these. And the first positive is the fact that we do get the grips up the heel here, which is something that is a nice little additional touch that not a huge number of grip sock brands seem to be going with, and I love that Josh has stuck with this, and I think it's just a really nice touch, and it's also not overdone. And the downside is no internal grips. Now, they've never had internal grips, the Pure grip socks, and to my knowledge, True Socks have a patent in the US which prevents other brands from using internal grips. And if they do so, they are at risk of a lawsuit from True Socks. So I understand why Pure haven't done this. And I personally don't like silicone grips on the inside of socks anyway. So I think it's a good thing that the silicone grip isn't replicated on the inside. But touching back on what I said earlier, I do think that there is a benefit to be had, maybe with a new generation of these or whatever the next iteration of Pure Socks is, to provide some of this structure or a lot of this structure, even at least maybe this black band, to run around the sock and provide the structure in this footbed area, not just across the top of the foot. I think it would make the whole sock perform that little bit better, because you cannot avoid, especially with a sock designed like this, the fact that the sock sticks to the insole of the boot and doesn't move, but your foot does move inside the sock, which obviously limits its effectiveness. And I just think they maybe should have thought of some way of working around that. I'll put the current tier list up on screen and I'll highlight the previous Pure Grip socks and where they are. Now, there is kind of an unwritten rule for the tier list that if you have silicone elements like these, if you're a crew sock with silicone elements, you cannot, absolutely not, go above that middle tier. But these aren't just crew socks. They do have technical elements, and I really do want to emphasize the comfort on them. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to push them up into that second tier foot spa category. So that is the first time a sock kind of this style, or at least similar to it, has ever made it into that tier. I wasn't expecting this when I first saw them, and I have to say, I'm a little bit shocked. And if you want to see where I've ranked multiple hundreds of other grip socks, you want to click the videos around my head.